6:30 a.m. I woke up to a splitting headache. The pain had been getting worse and worse recently. I always had problems with migraines, but this was on a whole other level, as if my skull was being crushed like a basketball by the great Kali. Repeatedly, like a pulse. Don't ask. Coffee. I need some coffee. I looked at the watch. 6:30 should be a reasonable time to wake up in November, I guess. The Delhi smog had started to fade by now, and I could actually see the sun today. Breathable air. Thank you, Lord. Dealing with poisonous air while your brain is threatening to pop out of your head isn't fun, I can tell you that. I picked up my coffee and I sat down to read the newspaper when I heard a crash upstairs. Oh no. It was way too early in the day to be dealing with those monkeys. Yes, actual monkeys on the roof of my duplex. Delhi is a strange place. Another crash came in, much louder this time. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. No monkey was this loud. Well, maybe a hairless monkey. But if it was indeed a hairless monkey, I was in big trouble. Who could it be? Thieves, killers, a homeless man, a kite enthusiast. I contemplated what to do. Should I go up and check, ignore it, or call for help? And then I realized how ridiculous I sounded. Calling for help over a slight bang. I might as well tattoo "wussy" on my forehead. I gathered up what little courage I had and I began to slowly walk towards the door when the doorbell rang, making me scream like a little girl. Way to go, Rambo. It was the milkman with the bill for the last month, and judging by his smile, I could tell that he had heard me. I grinned as I gave him the money. Could you please go upstairs and check if the door to the roof is locked? I think I left it open last night. I smiled at my own intelligence. Yes, it was cowardly, but efficient as well. It's locked, sir. He shouted from the top of the stairs and I sighed in relief. Thanking him, I went back inside. Now that monkey business was out of the way, I decided to get on with my day. I picked up my phone and I dialed my roommate. He had spent the night in the lab. Hard worker that he was. He answered in mere seconds, and that's why he's my best friend. Yo, Khalid, you up? Yes, clearly, I answered. Alright, dude. I take it your head is doing okay. So, we're really doing this again? Sakith asked. We don't have to, if you're not up for it, he added softly. Nonsense, I told you. My headaches have nothing to do with the experiment, man. It's just the pollution that's making my migraines worse. He didn't seem entirely convinced, but I knew he wanted this as bad as I did. Whatever. Just give me something to eat when you come. Alright, see ya. He worries too much, but I knew that I was right. We just had to get this thing done, and we were so close. I guess now would be the time I should tell you guys a little about what the two of us were doing in our university's laboratory, and what exactly it was that had my buddy Sakith so worried. See, 8 years ago, researchers in Berkeley were able to reconstruct low-resolution videos of what participants in their experiment had seen on a screen a couple of minutes prior. That is, they mapped the brain activity of the participants and reconstructed the movie, a crappy version of it, or in other words, recorded their memories. As you can see, the possibilities are endless. Interrogation of suspects, dream mapping, treatment of Alzheimer's, and so on. Our initial experiments in the field were with a re-engineered MRI machine, but we had come a long way in the last 4 years. We had succeeded in constructing what we call memory packets. These were tiny videos of our memories from the recent past that we could successfully record. The more recent and stronger the memory, the clearer the video. These videos had audio too. It was a complicated system of reading neural signals that I can't adequately explain without proper diagrams. And I won't do that here, obviously. Wait for our research to get published. The memory packet videos that we had recorded to were much clearer than what the researchers at Berkeley had managed. We were on the cusp of submitting our research to a journal, but Keith was worried about what the side effects were on the participant, being me. Like I said, he worries too much. 9:30 a.m. I don't worry too much. If our research does not mention the possible side effects, it would come to bite us in the butt later on, Keith argued as he helped me lie down on the table. It's just a migraine, I replied. Just push me, okay? He pushed my table into the machine, and I was entombed in my cozy little metallic cylinder. This is a bad idea. We're operating on our highest settings today. Just do it already. Alright, Shia LaBeouf, I'll do it already. Your funeral, maybe even literally. I got into my preparatory meditation exercises as the machine began to hum. I would envision a blank white screen, drown out all sounds except the gentle hum of the machine, and then project that one short memory that I wanted to record onto the screen. It was at that moment when my head would begin to vibrate in resonance with the machine that I would know that we were recording. I tried to focus in on the memory of me walking in and arguing with Keith over my headaches, but the hum of the machine was too loud and out of its usual character to let my mind properly settle down. I almost saw the image of my internal white screen when suddenly, a sharp pain tore through my head as the machine shut down with a large bang. What the heck? I shouted. The power went out. Are you okay? I heard him ask. A couple of seconds later, I felt him pull out the table. I winced as I gingerly sat up. What happened? I don't know. Maybe we blew a fuse or something. I'll go check. Holy crap, he said moments later. Come look at this. I walked over to where he was standing near the window. I looked out at what he was pointing at. The transformer was on fire. Flames leapt out and lit at the iron as little sparks continued to fly off. We did that? I asked. Seems like it. I'm gonna call 101. This was bad. Now, not only will we have to deal with the university administration, Keith too would be on my butt about the dangerous side effects. It's not what we needed. Not when we were so close. You get out of here, I'll deal with this, Keith said. You sure? Yeah, go get some fresh air, we'll talk later. He had that look again. I'm in serious trouble. 11:45 a.m. He's right to be worried about you. You're being far too reckless. Please, Neha, don't start with me, not you too. He wants to shut down the whole thing. We don't even know why the fire started. Maybe it wasn't even the machine that blew the transformer. Maybe it was the other way around. Or it could be something completely unrelated. I argued, even though I wasn't convinced myself. It's far too dangerous, she insisted. How will we know what started it if we don't experiment? It's the foundation of science. Only a couple of more observations and we're through. This could change our lives, all of us. Maybe the world even. You two could actually settle down. I don't know. Just talk to him, please. Khalid, you're acting like a child. Pretty please, I'll buy you a cake from Defense Bakery. Dang, okay. I'll try, you monster. Just please be careful. Thanks, you're the best. 3 p.m. Hey, Keith, I'm glad you called. Listen, man, I know you're worried. We only need to do this a couple of more times and we're through. I began. Khalid. We'll submit our research as soon as possible. It's just a matter of... Khalid, listen. It's Neha. She's dead. He was barely audible. I must have misheard him. What did you say? She died. A bus crashed into her when she was coming to see me. It just... That's impossible. I just spoke to her 3 hours ago. Just get to the hospital. I need your help. 9:30 p.m. How do you console your best friend who's just lost the love of his life? What can you say? What can you do that will make it better? I guess just being there is the only thing that you can do. Especially when it's someone who's always had a hard time dealing with his emotions. The funeral would be 2 days from now. His entire extended family wanted to be there. He was slumped against the machine, playing with an empty liquor bottle. It was a full moon night. Suspicious. "Come on, get up. Let's do it one more time right now," I said. "What?" he asked. "The experiment." "You can't be serious." He looked at me with wide, tear-stained eyes. "I'm dead serious. There isn't a better way to deal with grief than to distract yourself." "What is wrong with you, man?" He looked at me as if I was the one being unreasonable. "I dealt with my father's death by studying through it. Trust me, you need to be distracted right now." "We'll dedicate our research to her." 10:05 p.m. A plain white screen. The soft hum of the machine. Deep, regular breathing. A silhouette appears on the screen. It darkens and then shifts. I add colors to it and then some audio, bringing the picture to life. She died. A bus crashed into her when she was coming to see me. The silhouette began to speak. Another burst of sharp pain as the machine hummed loudly and then shut down. Keith pulled out the table. He had a questioning look in his eyes. "What was that?" he asked. I looked away guiltily. "Sorry about that. It was the clearest memory I had," I replied. "What memory? You just daydreamed my girlfriend's death," he said angrily. "What? Neha isn't dead." I knew Keith had trouble dealing with emotions, but to this extent that he was denying reality. Was he having a breakdown? "Okay, buddy, calm down." "No, don't look at me like I'm the crazy one, you absolute loon," he said. "She isn't dead. Here." He pulled out his phone and he dialed Neha's number. Someone picked up the phone. "Hey." I recognized that voice. Good God. 11:50 p.m. I'm losing my mind. I don't know what's real anymore. Neha was alive. I met her just hours after she died. Did I imagine the conversation I had with Keith? The time I spent with him in the hospital? Was the machine messing with my head? Or am I imagining this part of the day and she really is dead? I paced around my house, scared out of my mind. Maybe I had to stop going in that thing. That machine really was dangerous. It will destroy my mind if Keith is going to get me locked up in an asylum anyway. Or maybe not. Maybe time travel. I somehow changed the past and I'm now in an alternate. A huge bang brought me out of my mind. I'm so sick of large, sudden noises. This whole day has just been full of them. I walked over to the front door and what I witnessed next was the craziest stuff of my life. Half of the door had been blown apart and I saw a figure kicking the door in. Once, twice, and then he stepped back. Another bang. Big chunks of the door flew out, and Keith stepped in with a shotgun. "This ends now," he said as he took aim. I ducked as the shotgun blast tore through the painting my mother had made and gifted me on my birthday last year. I ran into the kitchen as more shots rang out. Bits of the concrete wall blasted out as the shells smashed in, trying to find my intestines. Keith was hell-bent on murdering me. Sweat poured down my face and I wiped it off with my shirt as I looked for a weapon or something to defend myself with. Where are the freaking knives when you need them? The drawer got stuck as I heard Keith approach me. "Anything, God. Just give me anything to defend myself." I settled on a wooden bellon. Grabbing it with shaking hands, I ran into the tiny storeroom at the back of the kitchen. "What is happening?" I heard footsteps. My murderous best friend was coming at me with a shotgun. I held my breath and waited. Click, click, click. I heard his boots as they grew louder. I tightened my grip on the bellon and waited. There. I saw his head enter the kitchen, and I swung as hard as I possibly could. The trusted wooden roller connected, and I swung again, and then again, and then again. Even as he fell down, I climbed on top of him, and I continued swinging until the top of his head was caved in. He stopped moving. For a second, I stopped, trying to take in the sheer insanity of the situation. And then I checked his pulse. Dead. I killed him. I just killed my best friend, hours after his girlfriend had died. I mean, not died, or didn't die. Crap, I'm getting another headache. Khalid, where are you? I heard a voice coming from the door. No. If someone sees me with a corpse, my experiments are done for. A future in prison is not what I wanted. I tried to drag the corpse to the storeroom. It's too late. The figure stepped into the kitchen. It was Sakith. He looked at me with wide eyes and then at the corpse. His corpse, that I was holding by its feet. I looked at dead Sakith and then at a live Sakith, who screamed. God, I need a drink. What the heck? Sakith whispered, as he looked at me holding his corpse by its feet. You still think I'm losing my mind? I asked, almost smugly. This can't be real. What? He began. Later, I interrupted. Help me move this body into the storeroom, quickly, before someone comes in and sees me with your corpse. He nodded quickly and moved to pick up his clone, or future self, by the arms. I can't even begin to understand how he must be feeling right now. What must it be like seeing your dead body with its head caved in? So, he grunted. Future Sakith was really heavy. I really tried to kill you. You did see the door, right? And you do see the shotgun there, and the multiple holes on the walls. Sorry, I guess. Nothing to be sorry about. At least not yet. I said and chuckled as we moved the body to the storeroom. A couple of seconds passed in uncomfortable silence as we both tried to make sense of the situation. Crap, he shouted suddenly. What? I asked, feeling a little alarmed. Am I going bald? He screamed as he pointed at the body. Sure enough, signs of male pattern baldness were there. I started to laugh. He joined in and we were soon laughing our asses off right next to the dead body in the cramped storeroom. We heard footsteps coming up the stairs. I shot Sakith a look. I was terrified that it was maybe yet another Sakith coming to finish the job that Sakith 2 had started. A flashlight illuminated our dark living room, and we soon heard the familiar raspy voice of our landlord. What did you two idiots do to my door? I warn you. No more experiments with explosives in the house. I quickly got up and I ran to the front door, or whatever was left of it. Dang, Mr. Aurora was pissed. Rightfully so. We hadn't been the best tenants. Good evening, sir. Beautiful night, isn't it? I asked with all the charm that I could possibly muster. Yes, it is night, time to sleep. Not to destroy my property. He shook his finger in my face. I'm so close to calling the cops on you two. The only reason I don't is because I owe your father a debt, Khalid. If he hadn't saved my life in Gargle, you two would have been kicked out a long time ago. I even forgave you when you broke the toilets and flooded this house with crap water. And that was 2 years ago, and your antics haven't slowed down. You truly are the best, sir. I smiled. Go to sleep, Khalid, he said, and then pointed at the door. And you're paying for this. I nodded as I watched him walk away. It's beyond time you got married, he added as he went down the stairs. I rolled my eyes. Always with the same stuff. I'm only 27, give me a break. I closed the half door and walked back towards the storeroom. We should call the cops, Sakith said as he popped out of the kitchen. Definitely not, I said. Why not? He asked. We have no idea what we're dealing with. Dude, we need help with this. Are you crazy? All of our research will be gone if we do that. Everything that we worked for will be gone. Taken away by some incompetent government scientist and some idiot bureaucrat. Forget that, I said, feeling offended that he would suggest something so stupid. It's dangerous, man, he whined. So? Do you realize what we've discovered here? This is game-changing, my dude. Our names could be up there with Einstein and Newton at some point in the future, I argued. Then what do you suggest that we do? He was starting to panic now. Listen, man, I don't want to die, not now and not in the future. You won't. We'll go back in time and capture the future you alive. 2:15 a.m. We need to be quick about this. We need to figure out how our machine works and use it to fix this. All before someone finds out your corpse or it stinks up the entire city, I said. Can we please just call him Sakith 2? Sakith 2's body sounds a little less creepy than my corpse. For all we know, this dude could be from an alternate reality. Whatever you say, Sakith 1. I grinned as he grunted in annoyance. Alright. I got up from my chair and walked over to the whiteboard with my marker. I'll draw up a quick timeline of my day, and we'll try and figure out how this thing works. And 15 minutes later, we had a rough timeline. 6:30 a.m. I wake up with a headache, follow my routine. There's a strange sound on the roof. What's the relevance? 9:30. I get to the lab. We perform an experiment with the machine that supposedly fries the transformer. 11:45. I talk to Niha on the phone. This conversation still happened even after the alteration in the timeline, and is presumably when I warned her in the altered timeline. 3 p.m. Sakith tells me Niha has died. 10:05 p.m. We conduct another experiment. Niha is alive now. 11:50 p.m. I get attacked by Sakith 2. So what do you make of this? I asked. Well, we're obviously dealing with two different phenomena here. We need to look at the machine, and Niha's death separately from the future me, or the Sakith 2 incident. Sakith replied, Let's deal with the machine first, since it's the one aspect here we can actually control. I said and he agreed. I think it's the experiment at 10 p.m. that's the key here, I said, and I circled that entry on the whiteboard. I believe I was able to send the memory packet back in time to the first experiment of the day, back when I didn't really have enough time to properly project a memory on my internal white screen, and my morning self ended up simply acting as a receiver of the message from the future. I must have been sufficiently alarmed of that memory, and must have warned Niha not to go and meet you, thereby saving her life. But why now? Why did the machine send a message back in time when it hasn't done anything like this before? I asked. Maybe it was something to do with the settings. The transformer blew because of the power load, right? Sakith suggested. Or maybe it was the fact that your memory this time was significant enough to cause an alteration in the timeline. Holy crap. What? I asked. Remember how the settings in the machine were at their highest possible level for the second experiment of the day, he answered. Maybe the transformer blew in the morning because of the power output of the second experiment. Maybe, I wondered. But why didn't I have the memory of Niha's death immediately? Because you hadn't sent the message back yet, he asked. But the machine still destroyed the transformer even though I hadn't sent the message back, I questioned. God man, it's only the first day, and time paradoxes are already confusing me. Sakith scratched his head. Half an hour later, and we had a decent idea of how our machine worked. This is our understanding. 1. When we start the machine, and someone, only me or could it be anyone, inside it concentrates to keep his mind clear enough to receive a message from the future. 2. After an X amount of time, we fire up the machine again. This time we send a memory, something that happened after the first experiment, back to the past, that is, at the time of the first experiment. This memory must be significant enough to change the timeline itself, by moving the subject in the past to act in a different manner than in the original timeline. 3. The subject retains memories of the original timeline and not the altered timeline, even though his own actions have brought about the alterations in the first place. Now let's talk about my murderous best friend from the future, I said. Yes, first, why am I trying to kill you? Second, is it really me from the future? Or am I someone from a parallel reality and there are other versions of me trying to do the same? Saki said. The term parallel reality itself is confusing because, for all intents and purposes, we are shifting laterally in timelines every time we successfully use the machine, I pointed out. Fair enough, he conceded. Let's use the term parallel reality for those who physically travel through timelines, and not just shift memories, so to speak. If they are doing that, and are not just from the future. Third, he added, why now? Why am I trying to kill you now? I could have easily gone back to when you were an infant and slit your throat in the cradle. How touching, I said wryly. But interesting. Maybe the existence of the machine is important to travel sideways or backwards. You're right. Maybe it has something to do with the usage of the machine itself. See, you were only attacked after you successfully sent a message back. Maybe each usage of the machine acts as an anchor point in time, for them to travel laterally or backwards too. So, just like we can only send a message back to the point in time when the receiver is ready, they too need such an anchor point to come back or sideways too, he said. Does this mean that I'm open to more attacks each time that I use the machine? Or in other words, could more of you travel in from other worlds each time I send a message back? Or is even preparing to receive a message from the future enough? I did hear a strange banging sound in the morning, I asked. That could have just as easily been a monkey, he said. We need more observations, I declared. Yeah, and also, maybe the usage of the machine is why you were attacked in the first place. Don't mess with time and stuff, Sakith suggested. Alright, you freaking Luddite. Being cautious isn't the same as being irrationally against science, he continued. Trying to kill your best friend is a tad irrational, no? I countered. He threw his hands up. So what now? I asked. Do we send a message back to the first experiment and overwrite the second experiment to warn my past self about your future parallel self? And Niha's death, he quickly added. Saving her is a priority. Exactly, I said. What happens if the message gets too garbled because of overwriting? Or what if I refuse to believe all this crazy stuff, and Niha ends up dying? Can we really risk it? You're right, he agreed. We can't risk it. Crap, we could have learned a lot from him. So, what do we do about the body? First, we need a blank slate, I said. We need to set up a point in time that we can send messages back to, in case of an emergency. The table went sliding into the machine. I felt a chill run down my spine. This was the first time I would be using this beautiful thing knowing what it was. I was making history here. Me, Khalid Alam, the greatest scientist in the history of humanity. I grinned and ran my fingers down the inside of the machine. Let's do this, baby. She began humming, sounding so much better than it ever had. It was hard to concentrate, but eventually I was in the zone. Everything else faded away, and the gentle hum of the machine and my internal white screen were all that remained. A minute passed and then another. After an unknown amount of time, the machine shut off and Sakith pulled me out. Is it done? I asked. I don't know. The power is still there. So maybe not? The settings and all are exactly the same as before, he replied. Maybe the transformer only blew because it was old, or because it was the first time in the machine itself had adjusted to the load, I suggested. I guess we'll find out in the future, won't we? He shrugged. Now, about that body. 4:56 a.m. Why do you want to drink at this unholy hour? I exclaimed. It's the morning. I don't care, man. It's not every night that we dissolve a dead body from the future, he said. I'm still a little creeped out at how easily you're handling all of this. I rolled my eyes. I was about to come up with a sharp retort about how I was the one whose life was in danger when my phone rang. Hey, Niha. Isn't it a little too early for your phone calls? Khalid! She screamed. You okay? Where is he? Where is Keith? Right here. I looked at him. What now? I'll put you on speaker. Niha, it's me. He spoke. Keith, thank God you're okay, baby. I was so worried when you weren't answering your phone. I thought... She stuttered. What? What happened? I asked. Your house. Someone burned it down. She cried. Mr. Aurora. He's dead. And God. Oh. So there really were more than one Keith from the future. We were in the lab, Keith said. We pulled an all-nighter. I'm coming to your place, Niha. I raised my eyebrow. He put his hand up to tell me to wait and say his goodbyes. You lied to her, I said accusingly. Not really, he grinned. Because we're about to change the past and capture the me that burned down our house. So this conversation would have never taken place. Heck yes, let's go get that shotgun, I said, feeling pumped. We'll already have that in the past, he pointed out. Come on, let me have my moment, dude, I pleaded. Unknown time in the morning. My head was pounding, as if someone had taken a freaking hammer to it, cracked it open, and was now playing with every pain receptor in there, however few there were. I heard someone screaming, probably Keith. I blinked my eyes open. I realized I was on the floor. Get up, Khalid, I heard him scream. God, not so loud, dude. My head hurts. The dang tube light is so bright. I looked around. We were in our house. It wasn't a charred mess at least. Good, I was back in the kitchen. I stumbled out into the living room. The first thing I saw was Mr. Aurora's headless body stuck to the wall, with a sword through the chest. A sword penetrated the freaking concrete wall. I swung my head and saw a terrified looking Keith, with his eyes fixed at the ceiling. I looked up and it was something I really shouldn't have done. There was another Keith crawling on the ceiling with his legs bent at odd angles like a demonic Spider-Man. He hissed as he saw me, and started crawling towards me at an unnatural speed. Just then, yet another Keith popped out of Keith's bedroom, and started running at me with a sword. I barely had time to step back when Demon Keith jumped down and tackled me to the floor. With incredible strength, he easily pinned me down, and took out a knife from his back pocket. I thrashed like a wild animal, but to no avail. The dude was strong, but this is not how I was going to die. He stretched back to try and stab my throat, but there was a huge bang, and he was thrown backwards. I coughed and looked at Keith. Maybe he had found the shotgun. No, it wasn't him. He was still cowering on the floor. Was he bleeding? Then who saved me? Another bang. Multiple holes appeared in Sword Keith, and he too flew backwards, gracelessly. I looked at Keith again, who was gawking at something behind me. I turned around. Come with me if you want to live. I saw another me holding a shotgun, and looking down at the real me with a grin on his face. Dang. My future alternative self came in and just murdered two versions of Keith, who not only tried to kill me, but had impaled my landlord at the wall with a sword. And then he topped his entry off with a Terminator-esque one-liner. I really should send this image back to yesterday morning and see how my past self reacts to this insanity. I groaned in pain as Khalid too. Or Khalid, T-1000, came over and helped me stand up. You two okay? He asked. I felt the muscles in his arm. Why was that guy so much stronger than I am? I can't believe there's a gym rat version of myself. That one was crawling on the ceiling. Keith was freaking out now. Why the heck was he crawling on the ceiling? I'm okay, I said. Okay, none of this is okay, Keith said angrily. I can deal with time travel, man, but what the heck is this demonic Spider-Man stuff? Do you want to know right now? Khalid too said. We could do that and have the other Sakis and the cops join the conversation. Or we could take this someplace else. What about the dead bodies? I asked. Leave them. We'll be hitting rewind ASAP, he replied. What, again? Clearly it hasn't been working to our advantage and has only made things worse, Saki said. If it wasn't for that machine, you both would be dead by now, Khalid too said. But we wouldn't be in this mess if it wasn't for the machine now, would we? The truth. Saki tried to say before I cut him off. God, dude, can we please leave before the police come? It was a dark morning. Delhi's early November smog had completely obscured the sun, and it made it near impossible to... It was a dark morning. Delhi's early November smog had completely obscured the sun, and it made it near impossible to breathe normally. The temperature had started to drop, and I really wished that I had taken out a jacket or something. I looked around and saw that things were not like what I was expecting. It was far too normal. The neighborhood was starting to come alive as I saw some people out on their morning walks. A couple of neighbors looked in our direction inquisitively, and I gave them a friendly wave. Nothing to see here, folks. Those shotgun blasts you heard earlier were nothing. Diwali had only passed by a couple of days ago, so it wasn't surprising that people were choosing to ignore gunshots. Probably some leftover firecrackers, they thought. I mean, who the heck would have a shotgun here, of all places anyway? Well, the cops might not have come, but more Sakis could show up at any time, so we might as well leave. I watched Khalid too lead us to his car. He really was something. He wasn't just muscular, he had this aura, like he knew how to get stuff done. What an impressive man, I smiled. I was going to be him one day. It was a short drive over to the university. It was strange. None of us said anything even though there was so much to talk about. We each had our own stuff to deal with, I guess. I, for one, couldn't help but think about how inconvenient it was that, in the new timeline, my memory of the time between me receiving the message and the time when I had originally sent it back in the first timeline was always lost. Sure, carrying memories of the original timeline was convenient, but waking up in a strange place with no idea how you got there was getting old. I had a faint idea of what I would most likely do when I receive a memory packet, but recent events had shown that things spun far too quickly out of control. Physically traveling back in time like the Keith clones or Khalid 2 seemed to be so much better. Khalid 2 applied the brakes, bringing me out of my reverie. He got out of the car, went around to the back and brought his shotgun out of the trunk. You two stay here, I'll be back, he said, and off he went. I saw the way that he handled his weapon. Clean, efficient. He had clearly been trained in this. I'm so tired, man. It feels like I haven't slept in days, Saki said. You might as well have, I replied. Time is a little different for us now, isn't it? Yeah, he admitted with a chuckle. So, you looking forward to some answers? I wonder what he'll say about my alternative versions trying to. He was cut off by shotgun blasts and screaming. Oh crap, I said. Does it ever end? Before Sakith could reply, one of his clones came flying out of a window of the lab and landed on the hood of the car with a sickening thud. An eyeball rolled over to and settled between the wiper and the windshield. Gross. Khalid too popped his head out of the shattered window and gestured at us to come up. We found at least 2 dead Sakis as we made our way upstairs. Yes, I really would like some answers. Overwrite the last message you sent. Instead of trying to capture that one back at your house, come find me at this address. He handed me a piece of paper. I'll tell you everything you want to know. 3:30 p.m. I felt warm. The sort of warmth you feel when you're at your grandparents' house during Christmas vacations, curled up in a blanket after a day of frolicking around with your cousins. I slowly blinked open my eyes and I looked around. It didn't seem like a hotel room. It was far too intimate for that. Someone's house. But whose? Was it the address in the paper? Maybe it's just not that important. I remember sending a message back and then straight waking up here. I guess I must have already been asleep when I again reached the time I had sent the memory packet back. I got up, stretched my back. God, I was so sore. Opening up the bedroom door, I peeked outside and I found Sakith talking to Khalid too. It's still so weird watching yourself like this. I really don't know how twins live their lives without freaking out all the time. When did you wake up? I asked Sakith. About half an hour ago, he answered. So, can we talk now? This guy, he pointed at Khalid too, refuses to say anything until you wake up. I thanked Khalid too as he offered me a coffee. Of course I would know what I wanted when I wake up. So, what do you guys want to know? He asked. Sakith opened and closed his mouth like a fish, thousands of questions running through his mind. Why is he trying to kill me? I asked, jerking my thumb at Sakith as I took a sip of that perfect coffee. Straight to the heavy stuff, huh? I like it, Khalid too said. 2 words. Professional. Jealousy. Excuse me, Sakith protested. Yeah, you heard me, Khalid too said. Sounds ridiculous, but it is true. See, you guys together invent the memory machine. True, but it is you, he pointed at me, who invents the actual time machine. The one that I used to save your butts back there. The thing is, there's a problem with the memory machine that makes it impossible for it to be made public. So, since it is Khalid who invents the actual time machine, he is remembered as the superior scientist. I smiled. That was obvious though. BS, Sakith interrupted. I shushed him. Sidelined, divorced, and childless, Sakith turns bitter. Khalid too continues. This is nonsense, Sakith shouts as he looks at me, aghast. You really believe this? Tell me, if the time machine is famous in this future or other futures of other worlds, why hasn't it been used by others? I'm getting to that, calm down, Khalid too said. A. The memory machine is heavily controlled by a company Khalid sets up and only a few people are even aware it exists or how it works. Also, even if it was used repeatedly, you wouldn't know, for reasons that I shall get into soon. B. The machine that physically allows you to travel through time can only be used by me, or someone who shares my exact DNA. That is, other versions of myself. So what's wrong with the memory machine? I asked. Well, it kills you every time you use it, he said in a very matter-of-fact manner. Excuse me? I asked, feeling stunned. See, I told you he was lying, Sakith exclaimed. Yeah, it kills you, Khalid too continued. Every time you use it, or rather, every time you shift timelines, your soul and mind, whatever the heck you want to call it, leaves your body in the original timeline and goes to the body in the new timeline. People in the original timeline are left looking at your corpse. Holy crap, I whispered. How do we know you're not lying? Sakith asked softly. You could try it, Khalid too countered. I'd be more than happy to produce your dead body to Khalid here as proof. I'm not exactly very fond of Sakith currently, even though you're still in the friendship stage and haven't yet turned into a psychopath. No, that's okay, I said quickly. The headaches I get are because my mind is adjusting to my new body, isn't it? Yes. Huh, so it wasn't your migraine, was it? Sakith said triumphantly. I rolled my eyes. So again, why is he trying to kill me? Like I said, Sakith grows jealous of the fact that you got famous, building off of research that you both worked on. He comes over to your house one day on a friendly visit, assaults you and steals your research. He plans on going back in time to release his work before you can, to hog the limelight for himself. But as I said, the time machine cannot be used by anyone other than those with the exact same DNA as mine, so the time traveling starts to break his mind. He turns into a murderous monster, losing his intelligence the more that he uses the machines. Both the versions. Khalid too answered. Wow, that's the most nonsensical stuff I've ever heard in my life. Sakith clapped mockingly. Bravo, my friend. What about these strange powers? Superhuman strength and crawling on the walls? I questioned. I don't completely understand that myself. I think that too is a side effect of using the machines, Khalid too said. But why are there so many of them running around trying to kill Khalid? Sakith asked. Alternate realities, Khalid too answered. It could be many things. It could be that they all betrayed their own Khalids and are converging on this Khalid. He points at me. For some reason, I don't understand. Or it could be that the Sakith that betrayed me is going to all the timelines we created, and is recruiting more Sakiths and giving them their own time machines. But why would they seek revenge? Their Khalid died when he used the memory machine, didn't he? Sakith asked. Who knows, maybe using the machines is what turned them into monsters, and my Sakith is the one somehow controlling them. The possibilities are endless, Khalid too said. My head is starting to hurt again. Good God, this is confusing, I said. A strange beeping sound interrupted our conversation. Khalid too looked at his wristwatch that was emitting a green light. Sakith's incoming. Wait here, I'll get some guns for you two, he said and left the room. The heck? He knows when they're close? None of this makes any sense, Sakith said when Khalid too was gone. I'm not the type of guy to betray you like that. You know me. Something is off about this whole situation. Please don't trust him blindly. It could be dangerous. I'm not trusting him blindly, but he did save our lives, Sakith. That counts for something. Let's just go with him for now and do our own investigation, I said. The truth was, I was leaning towards believing Khalid too. I was always the true brains of our operation, always pushing us to get out of our comfort zone, to try to build something new. If it wasn't for me, Sakith would happily waste his life in mediocrity. It wouldn't surprise me if in the future, Sakith got jealous of my success and tried to betray me. But I wasn't an idiot. I would keep my cards close to my chest and look at them both with suspicion. Gunshots. They were here. I heard screaming from the outside and I knew Khalid too was fighting them. I ducked and I fell down to the floor as the living room window broke and bullets smashed into the walls. Guns are so much louder in real life than what movies would have you believe. I crawled over to where Sakith was lying on the floor, as glass exploded and fell on my back in pieces. He was curled up in the corner, covering his ears. Poor chap really wasn't cut out for this. Then again, he was the one trying to kill me, wasn't he? So maybe he was cut out for all of this. I heard loud footsteps coming up the stairs as the gunfire slowed down. Please let it be Khalid too. My familiar face came into view as he walked into the room. We need to move. I've taken care of them for now. He began before Sakith slammed into his back, bringing him down to the floor. Khalid too punched the struggling Sakith demon, who ducked, and Khalid too's fist slammed into the attacking Sakith's face, destroying his skull, creating deep cracks in the cemented floor. More Sakith demons came in and attacked Khalid too. I tried to help him, but Sakith cut me off. Don't, we have our own problems. I turned around and he was right. 3 more Sakiths stepped into the room through the window, armed to the teeth. Take him. One of them shouted, and in seconds, I was in handcuffs. They were too strong, and too fast for me to handle. They threw a dark cloth over my face and carried me away, presumably back through the window. I heard my Sakith, or Sakith 1, scream my name, but his voice quickly faded. I was thrown into what seemed to be the trunk of a car. God, this was bad. I was so going to die. Forget you, Sakith. You jealous POS. The trunk of his car is far too small for someone as tall as me. Knees bent at painfully odd angles, arms tied behind my back, and a blindfold covering my eyes. I felt every single one of the bumps on the road, as these Sakith clones drove as roughly as humanly possible. Seriously, how freaking small was this car? It felt like a Maraudu 800, and they don't even make those anymore. Honestly, I don't know what to think of Khalid 2's story. I could absolutely understand Sakith snapping after not getting any credit for the time machine, and turning into a divorced and bitter man. But then again, if what I've been told is true, he shouldn't really be surprised that he ended up this way. Why should I share the stage when it was I alone who supposedly built the upgraded version of the machine? This was so like him. I remember back in high school when he tried to rat me out for copying off him in an exam, when I ended up scoring higher than him. Yes, cheating helped, but I still did better than him. Frickin' jealous prick was now trying to kill me because I was a better scientist. The one thing that had me most confused was why Khalid 2 was trying to help me. Why was my survival essential for a man who was from a parallel reality? Hadn't he been killing other parallel versions of ourselves when he was jumping from timeline to timeline in the first machine? Wasn't that the secret behind his strength? I saw that it wasn't just Sakith who was getting stronger after using the machine. I saw Khalid 2 leave a freaking dent on the concrete floor after punching it. And once more, he wasn't losing control of his mental faculties either. He was sharp as I've ever been. So what could? Wait a minute. Maybe he wasn't someone from a parallel reality. Maybe he was the future version of me. I know it sounds confusing, but bear with me. Imagine there are multiple versions of myself who all decide to use the time machine to send messages back into their respective pasts and change timelines. With each successful message, they create new timelines, growing stronger. So while they are now in parallel realities compared to where they had started, but they are still the original themselves. They hadn't physically traveled to the alternate timelines. They had simply replaced the Khalids that existed in those timelines, killing them and taking over their bodies. If Sakis truly wanted to kill the time-hopping Khalids, they could go back to when those Khalids first started time-hopping and kill them, before they got stronger. And that is why Khalid 2 wanted to protect me, because if I die, he dies too. But then again, this opens up a whole new can of worms. If he travels back in time, doesn't he mess with the timelines that I traveled through, potentially changing the fact that he was here in the first place? Also, why hadn't these Sakis already killed me yet? For what unfathomable reason was I being kept alive? I really can't think all of this when I'm bouncing around in the back of a car fit for Tyrion Lannister. Where were we going anyway? The road was too rough to still be in the city area. I was about to get my answer though, as the car slowed down and stopped. I heard footsteps, crunching what sounded like gravel, and in moments, I heard the trunk being opened up. Someone took off my blindfold, and I saw 3 Sakis looking down at me balefully. "Get him out," one of them spoke, and soon I was literally lifted out of the car. They wouldn't even let me walk. They had brought me out to some warehouse of some kind. We were definitely out of the city area, maybe somewhere in the NCR. It was definitely an appropriate place for shady stuff like this. Guards, who I assumed were more Sakis, were positioned strategically around the building, armed to the teeth. I'm sure there were others that I wasn't even seeing. How are they getting so many guns? What happened to Indian gun laws in the future? A solitary chair sat in the middle of the empty warehouse, and I instantly knew who was going to be tied down to it in the very near future. Finally, one of these Sakis looked at me with glee in his eyes, as I was tied to the aforementioned chair. "We can end this now." "Look man, I don't know why you feel like you must do this, but you really don't have to." I tried to reason with him. "We can share credit for building the time travel machine. I haven't even built it yet, and you certainly seem to know how to build it. You traveled here after all, just take the What is he talking about? I tried to crane my head to look at these Sakith from behind me, who would presumably ask this question. "He seems to think we're doing it for the machine," the Sakith who was talking to me said. "Of course," another one joined the conversation. As self-centered as he is, it isn't surprising that he believes that. I felt a hard slap against the side of my face, leaving my ears ringing. Listen, the Sakith who slapped me said, we're not doing this for the money or the fame, or whatever stupid stuff your psychotic brain can come up with. Sure, I was the one who was psychotic. No, he continued. We're doing this because someone needs to stop you. You've killed so many people. Yeah, don't look so shocked. Another slap. You killed Niha so many times in so many realities. I've never seen anyone as monstrous like you. It's truly spectacular. I'm sure there are worlds where even Joseph Fritzl is a decent father. But there is no world where Khalid Alam hasn't killed people, destroyed lives to get ahead. You rigged your own time machine to destroy the minds of anyone other than you if they try to use it. He truly was insane. Never in my life have I heard anyone, and this dude thinks that I'm a freaking murderer. It's ridiculous. I'm sure you're mistaken, Sakith. I addressed the one attacking me before turning towards the others. I've never killed anyone. You just killed one of us yesterday with a wooden roller. A Sakith to my left side, my eyes widened. Yes, my attacker spat. We can keep track of events across timelines now. I was in self-defense, I protested. He was shooting at me with a shotgun. This is pointless. We should just kill him and get it over with. The attacker, Sakith said. Whoa, let's not be hasty, I pleaded. We can't, not yet. The Sakith to the left of me said. We talked about this. We don't know what effect it'll have on that guy. We need to get him first and then we will kill this guy here. We can't risk it. Who knows if we'll get stronger if we kill this one now. It took a long time to pin that one down. No, we wait. And like I said, he's clearly trying to protect him. Attacker, Sakith said. Why would he try to protect him if he could just get stronger by killing him? It could be a bluff. Maybe he needs a certain set of conditions. It could be 1,000 different things. We're not having this conversation. I started this and I decide how we finish it. The Sakith to my left said. So, he was the boss of this operation. If I could get him on my side, maybe I could work my way out of the situation. Or at least wait until Khalid 2 and my world Sakith show up. Yes, my real best friend was still out there. I looked at the boss Sakith to come up with some argument before he cut me off. Don't even think about it. Nothing you say will get me on your side. Try to speak and I'll have them cut your tongue out. I wisely kept my mouth shut. Some painfully long and awkward minutes passed as these Sakiths prepared for the inevitable showdown with my future self, as some of the others sat staring at me. They were prepared. I certainly hoped that Khalid 2 was strong enough to take them out. I tried to pass the time by trying to count how many of them there were. I had reached 9 Sakiths when I heard the first gunshot. I smiled. Here we go. The Sakiths in the warehouse leapt into action with a machine-like efficiency. 2 of them took up positions around me as the battle raged on outside. The glass windows high up on the walls exploded and the body of a Sakith came crashing in and slammed onto the ground 20 feet or so in front of me. Status update. A Sakith close to me screamed into his earpiece. He got no reply. A loud bang tore through the sound of the gunshots and the very earth trembled. Something big must have exploded. A chill ran down my spine as I marveled at how magnificent and badass my future self was. More bangs and I felt something wet on the side of my face. What the heck? I looked around and saw that the Sakiths guarding me had been taken care of, if the holes on their foreheads were anything to go by. I was literally bathed in their blood. I heard footsteps and I looked up and saw Khalid 2 walking in with a rifle on his shoulders. You okay? He asked as he looked around for any surviving Sakiths. I will be as soon as you untie me, I replied. He nodded and came towards me. So, you lied to me, I said. About what? He grinned. They say that you're a murderer, I answered. He shrugged. Look around you. Not this. I rubbed my now free hands. They say you killed Nia and many more. Power comes at a cost, buddy. I'm sure that deep down you understand that, he said. I was about to reply when I saw some Sakis come running in from the back door, and I quickly hid behind him. More gunshots and I fell down on the floor, covering my ears. As the sound died down, I looked up and I saw them struggling on the floor. Now we got him. One of them shouted and more Sakis poured in like ants from seemingly nowhere. Where the heck were they hiding? Khalid too let out a rage-filled shout and started to take on the dozens of demon Sakis with his bare hands. What followed was the most violent sight I had ever seen. Khalid too and his attackers began to tear each other apart with their hands and teeth. Chunks of flesh flew and the floor turned into some nightmarish Jackson Pollock art of blood and gore. I felt hands on my shoulders and I jumped. I turned around and I saw Sakith covered in blood himself and carrying a shotgun. His eyes were wide in fear and I instantly knew that this was my guy. "Are you okay?" I shouted, trying to make myself heard over the growls and the biting and slashing. "Yeah, not mine," he screamed, pointing at his blood-stained clothing. We tried to leave, but the fighting had shifted towards the door now. Khalid too was shredding them to pieces, whittling down the ranks of the angry Sakis, but he was starting to take damage too. Sometimes they would be fighting on the floor and then suddenly shift towards the roof or one of the walls. Blood sprayed everywhere. It was total madness. We crouched down near the walls and watched as the fighting gradually slowed down until only Khalid too and two Sakis remained. Khalid ripped out the jaw of one of the attacking Sakis as the other bit out a chunk of his throat. Khalid too fell down on his knees. The last remaining Sakith tried to finish him off, but he stabbed him in the stomach at the very last second with his hand. It's hard to see how these creatures were fighting. "It's over," Khalid too breathed. "I win, my wounds will heal." He began to cough and he spat out blood. We got up and we walked towards him. I picked up a pistol from the floor, aimed it at Khalid too and emptied the magazine into his head. Saki screamed. "No," I said. "Now you're done." 8:30 p.m. "Wow, so he was the one at fault, huh?" Sakith asked, more if he was contemplating the situation than actually expecting an answer. "Yep," I answered anyway. Power Hungry killed hundreds of innocent people. He murdered Niha too. Apparently there are other Khalids too who are doing the same. I imagine their original Khalids are dealing with the same situation. No wonder I went crazy. I would do anything to protect Niha, he said softly. "Speaking of her, how is she? Have you spoken to her? Does she at least know where you are?" I asked. "No," he answered. "I'll call her right after we're done with this." He looked at the machine in front of him. It's hard to imagine it gave us this much trouble. All these science fiction was right, man. Time travel is not to be messed with. I laughed, but dang was he right. "At least we don't have it as bad as we did," I said. "Time paradoxes are easier to deal with than this insanity that we went through. Frickin' psychotic future selves and vengeful demonic alternate selves." "Yeah, thank God they judged you wrong though. They were wrong to think that you would want to be just like that Khalid." I took out the gun from the back of my jeans and I shot him in the head. "You're right, Sakith. I don't want to be like Khalid too. I would never leave loose ends behind. I'm going to gain power all alone, without anyone trying to bring me down. Everyone who knows about this machine in this reality is dead. Soon the fire department is going to find out that there is a terrible fire caused by an electric short circuit in my university that led to the tragic death of one Sakith Anasheti." I looked at the blueprints of the machine in my hand. No obstacles in front of me now, only a path to godhood. "Let's get this started."